Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day you are watching us here at Dr. Rob's Spirits and Supernatural. Patrick, welcome back to the show for part two of our event today. We had to go ahead and end the show, the first part of the show, due to constraints of memory, computer, whatever you want to call it. So,
Well, we were
welcome
just kind
back.
of kind of playing it safe there because this computer I haven't used much. This is one I just set up, and even though we should be fine on memory and hard drive space, it hasn't been tried and tested, so I wasn't going to push the limits of the technology, especially with some of the luck we have.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, during our break, we had a discussion. You were going to rename that last show we just did, Dr. Love coming out on YouTube. And I have never really talked about my personal life, I guess, over the last few years that we've been doing this show. But, I've been reading some of the comments and people have been asking, so I just figured, well, why not, Patrick? Anyways, now we're back on to our main topic of this segment, John Lennon.
Yes, and you had originally, I guess, had a fan request about John Lennon, and then possibly, George Harrison, I think it was. And then over the past few weeks, it seems like anything I'm searching for on YouTube, or even if you turn on the radio, it's always been a Beatles song, or I see things pop up with John Lennon. So probably I would assume it's time. So you want to confirm with him that he's been trying to come through?
Yes, I do have him here with me.
Okay, and I assume he has been wanting to be here?
I have a really strong feeling with them. Some of our guests, come through and they're with us, but it's not as strong as I'm feeling right now.
Okay. Now, it's been since 1980s when his passing happened in December. So does he want to maybe just kind of shed some light on what he's been up to for the past couple decades?
Um, I would say that with John, he's more working toward world peace, like he did when he was alive, and so he's made like a lot of appearances in war zones, trying to spiritually influence peace. I can see him all over the globe. So whether he's hanging out in one spot or another spot, whenever we see is what he tells me. Whenever we're seeing something hot spot on the news, that's where he's at. He's like almost like a guardian angel of those that are trying to bring peace to the world.
Okay. Um, now, what does he think would have been different in this reality we live in had he not been murdered?
He said it really owes his time because he's done more and his work has done more. His music, all the projects he was working on have done more now that he's gone than what they would have done while he was alive. I think that he's really letting me know that it was like his destiny, to continue his legacy. If he would have lived any longer, his legacy wouldn't have been as powerful.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
I
he
can
tells
see
me.
that's kind of what I thought too. Now, did he have some sort of prearranged agreement before coming to this life with the man that shot him, or was that just something that just was randomly pulled out of the cards?
I believe that everything has a reason, but I don't really necessarily think that they made an agreement that, at this time when he would be shot by this man.
Sure.
I don't really go into all of that, but what he lets me know is that it just kind of was his time to go. And this was just, God's way of working it out for him.
Well, since his passing too, and in between, I guess, working for world peace, who are some of the other people we might recognize that he associates with commonly on the other side?
He really has an affinity towards Gandhi, and he was more like into that Eastern culture, that Eastern religion, and there's really a lot of people from that side of the world that he just felt connected to. And really, those are the people that
Okay.
he associates with
Right,
on the
Mother
other side.
Teresa too, I'd assume. And
So all the, I would say that a lot of the spiritual uh, people that were alive, even back, a few hundred years to his passing, he just seems to have that mindset. He tells me he had a lot of past lives in that area, and he feels really connected to that. Even though he's on the other side now, he's feeling really connected to that,
Okay.
to that philosophy.
What's the music like where he's at compared to what we have?
He says that music is a lot different. It's more on a dimensional level, interdimensional level, where it doesn't really sound the same as it sounds here on Earth. He said that music in heaven or on the other side is kind of like the best stereo system you could ever have multiplied by a million. It's like a pure energy that flows through the universe. And for
Very
him, that
cool.
was the most amazing part of it.
Does he still frequently maybe visit Yoko or his children or keep eyes on what's going on with them?
He says that he's still connected to his family, but Yoko was really not the love of his life like people would think. And they had a partnership, but it was more based on business than it was on love. And she was like his motivator at one point, is what he tells me. But they really weren't
Okay.
as close
Yeah, that kind of
as most
fits
people
because
would
I
think.
think after he'd taken a 5 year break from music and they got back together after they'd been split up, it did seem like she took on more of a role of a business manager.
Yeah, and he's not, unhappy with her from the other side, but he's just not as spiritually connected to her
Okay.
as the public perceives.
What would you think some of his maybe greatest accomplishments were in this past life here that he can reflect on?
He says that it was all about peace and harmony, people living together. And he said that, even though there's a lot of conflict, more conflict in the world now than there was back when he was alive, he sees that people are starting to come together more and more, through technology, through, various means of
Yeah, well, I
communication.
mean,
And that to
the
him
beginning of
is really
the
exciting. It's
British
really exciting.
invasion, like they helped set off, was also kind of really one of the marker points of kind of an awakening of consciousness. I mean, a lot of the concepts that we kind of accept now, or even in songs like Imagine, um, a lot of that stuff, that was really just the beginning point. And I bet, did he have any idea that he was going to be ushering in basically the revolution he sang about in a way?
He said he had an idea of it, but he really didn't get the full picture until he crossed over. And now he sees about,
Yeah.
the Beatles music is timeless. My niece and nephew are 14 and 16, and they've just discovered the Beatles. When I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s. That was after they really, had their impact in the 60s, and I was just a kid. But my parents were into the Beatles. My dad is a huge, huge, huge Beatles fan. He had all the albums, and I would listen to them. And, but this next generation, after me, kind of, they didn't really discover it. But this new generation, it's like they're picking up the mantle where the Beatles left off. These kids that are growing up today are, technologically advanced and on their cell phones and staying connected to their friends, even through Skype. Because, Skype is a great company and a great system, but there's even FaceTime on iPhones. So it seems like that world peace or that commonality that we all have as a
Yeah,
part of
because
the
he was
world
really at the spearhead
is really
of
coming
the
together even
beginning
more
of it
so now
all. I always
than
thought
ever.
of it that way.
Absolutely, that's what he says as well. He's like a catalyst of bringing people together under a common theme, a common goal. And at that time, everybody was, fighting, all over the world. World War. It wasn't a world war, but not everybody was still,
I heard a dog barking on there, Rob. Is that John Lennon's dog?
Yeah, no,
Oh, I thought maybe John brought his dog or something.
it's our wonderful technology.
What would he have liked to have maybe seen done differently when he looks back, or maybe still had time to accomplish, even though he did feel it was his time, or did everything pretty much play out the way he wanted?
He really the only thing he regrets is the amount of drugs that he used. That's really the only thing he tells me about.
Really, the only thing he regrets is the amount of drugs that he used. That's really the only thing he tells me about is the amount of drugs that he was using, even up until the time of his death. It really clouded some of his happiness. You know, he lost years of his life, he said, due to the drug use. He just couldn't remember, even, back from the early days of the Beatles, that was all wiped from his mind. And, I'm not sure, where Paul McCartney stands in all of this, but, he mentions Paul and his connection to Paul, even though they weren't close, as necessarily as close as they were in the beginning.
Cool.
He still looks after Paul and still looks over, his family especially.
It's just they have connections, but like they're not really they're not like hanging out every day.
It's just they have connections, but they're not really best friends on the other side. They're not like hanging out every day and reliving their moments when they were alive. He says that George is pretty much just resting, and really is not really involved with anything other than that.
It takes some people longer to recoup than others.
Absolutely.
So what would he say as far as advice to give to his
Absolutely.
fans?
Absolutely.
Does he want to speculate or elaborate on some of the things, message he might want to pass on?
The only thing I can hear from him right now, in regards to coming events, he says that,
the only thing I can hear from him right now, in regards to coming events, he says that, Yoko is going to be joining him soon.
Or re-released, or...
Exactly. He says there's a lot of things that are yet to be released, and he says that once Yoko passes to the other side, then there'll be more material.
He says there's a lot of things that have yet to be released, and he says that once Yoko passes to the other side, then there'll be more materials and new things coming out. He said in the next 6 months there's going to be some handwritten music or something of that nature, because he's showing me sheet music. So I would say that, possibly that could mean that, some of the earlier writings of him and Paul together could be, released later this year.
A lot of it we're all curious and like to get a picture of what's on the other side. As far as like the timeline, is it really a line, or is it all playing out simultaneously currently right now?
Well, the way that I see it, it's like we're born and we die, and it's all in the same second. So, it's like
well, the way that I see it, it's like we're born and we die, and it's all in the same second. So, it's like we're living this time span of however many years we have, but in all actuality, it could be a minute's worth of time on the other side, or it could be a second worth of time on the other side. So, even though we're stuck in this time frame of 100 years, or less than 100 years, we go, we come, we go, we come, we go, we come. But eternity is eternity. It lasts forever.
John would like to add,
and we
elaborate
have a
on things
concept of
maybe I
what that
didn't quite
means.
get to cover. He kind of answered some of the questions before I really asked them once again, like a lot of guests tend to do.
Yeah, I really feel like his message to end it is really just a message of hope.
Yeah, I really feel like with his message, to end this, is really just a message of hope.
Well,
never give up hope,
coming on
never give
here,
up
and,
dreaming, never give up
hopefully
on
he'll
life.
manage to accomplish some of what he's working on.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for arranging us to do a hobby show
Really.
today. And, whether you listen to us in the morning, the afternoon, the evening.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for arranging us to